This movie is based on a real story. The events take place in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, in the year 1963. Jacqueline Kennedy is the grieving widow. Her husband John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the President of the United States, perished a few days ago in Dallas in an assassination attempt. Of course, Jackie found herself in the spotlight. However, despite everything, she agreed to speak with a journalist. On that fateful day, Jackie was in the car with her husband. She is glad that she was with him in his final moments. Jackie only wants the country to remember her husband Jack as a great man. Jackie herself was recently the most popular woman in America and a style icon. She remembers how in 1961 she was preparing to give a tour of the White House. Jackie was very nervous, knowing that many considered her to be foolish. However, despite her fear, Jackie pulled herself together and did what she had to do. Jackie was the youngest of the 29 First Ladies who had occupied the White House. With the advent of television, the entire lives of politicians have come into view, and the Kennedys were no exception. People want to know how their President and First Lady live. In the present, Jackie told the journalist that she invested a lot of money in renovating the White House. She wanted to share the grandeur of their country with the people. Jackie's husband came from a wealthy family, but after losing his older brother on the front lines, he also enlisted in the same war. John Kennedy had the opportunity to live in luxury, but he chose a different path, willing to do anything for the well-being of his country. In the past, in her interview, Jackie talked about her special relationship to art. Objects of art are what outlive people and remain in history, uniting generations. For Jackie, it's something deeply personal. Listening to live music always stirred strong emotions within her. In the present, the journalist promised to create the most truthful report possible. But Jackie herself used to be a reporter, so she knows that he needs a detailed description of yesterday's incident. Some time before this, Jackie dressed up and rehearsed her speech. Soon both she and Jack disembarked from the plane to the applause of the crowd. Everyone loves the First Lady and presents her with flowers. The Kennedys have always been very close to the people, which is why they are respected. There was a large escort from the airport for the President and his wife. Jackie cannot recall without tears how the shot rang out. Without having a chance to understand anything, Jack fell right into his wife's lap. Jackie will forever remember the bewilderment frozen on her husband's face. That's how he passed away. Jackie shared her story with the journalist but said that some details should not be published anywhere. After the gunshot, everyone was focused on protecting the First Lady from the fate that befell the President. Jackie cried for a long time, unable to believe that her beloved husband was gone. Despite everything, she maintained self-control. The next President of the United States was Lyndon B. Johnson. Everything was hastily arranged to prevent destabilization in the country. Johnson solemnly swore on the Constitution that he would always prioritize the interests of the country above all else. For Jackie, everything was like a blur. Her husband was replaced very quickly. What was a dangerous political situation for the country was a personal tragedy for her. She wants to personally take care of the husband's funeral. Jackie also has no intention of hiding from the press and showing her fear to those who took her husband's life. She was supposed to disembark from the rear of the plane, but she planned to disembark as usual. The most difficult part for Jackie will be going to the hospital where the autopsy will be conducted. Experts need to determine the bullet caliber and other details. Bird, President Johnson's wife, advised Jackie to change her clothes and clean up before going to the press, but she wants those people, whoever they may be, to see the consequences of their actions. John Kennedy's brother, Bobby Kennedy, is experiencing this tragedy just as heavily as Jackie. He intended to accompany her to the hospital. As soon as they disembarked from the plane, they found themselves surrounded by the press. A car was waiting for them on the runway. For Jackie, the nightmare is only beginning. In the hospital, she asked Bobby to make sure that Jack looked like himself. Bobby promised to take care of everything. Jackie also instructed that the children should stay at home. She doesn't want to shield them from the truth. At some point, Jackie couldn't bear it and rushed to the morgue. She wanted to see her husband right now, but Bobby stopped her. All the news is talking about this. President Johnson has already begun to fulfill his duties as the head of state. It's clear that he is more than pleased with his appointment. Bobby knows that Johnson insisted on taking the oath of office as soon as possible. He was ready to do it right in Dallas, where John Kennedy perished, but that would have been unethical. Jackie wants her husband to be buried like Abraham Lincoln, who left a significant mark in history. Even in her worst nightmare, Jackie couldn't imagine returning home without the beloved husband. Left alone, she could no longer contain her emotions. At night, Jackie couldn't sleep and smoked. In the present, the journalist told her that she would have to share her personal memories, or people would not be appeased. The First Lady's silence could be perceived as hubris. The morning after the incident, Jackie began organizing the husband's funeral. She wants it to be a grand and pompous funeral procession that people will remember. The procession is expected to follow the same route as Abraham Lincoln's. However, Bill Walton didn't consider it a good idea. In his opinion, the First Lady should take the children and go somewhere far away, like Boston. It would be for their own safety. The conversation was interrupted by the housekeeper, who said that the children had already woken up. Jackie didn't know what to say to them, but she had to do it. The son and daughter asked where their dad was. With tears in her eyes, Jackie replied that Dad wouldn't come back because he's in heaven with their brother Patrick. Soon a funeral mass took place. The entire country was in deep mourning. Jackie was holding on with all her might, because all the formalities have to be observed. Opinions on how and where to bury the president were divided. Family members and close associates of the president argued about it. Jackie worries about what will happen to her and the children from now on. Abraham Lincoln's widow spent her last years in poverty. Will the same fate befall her? Not so long ago nothing was a sign of trouble. Jackie gave a tour of the house she lived in with her husband and children for the film crew. The same house was once inhabited by President Lincoln's family. Jackie doesn't like that her mother-in-law insists on burying Jack's ashes in Brooklyn. Bobby doesn't know what to say. Later, Jackie arrived at the cemetery with an entourage to choose the burial site. There will be 10,000 people at the funeral, so they must prioritize comfort. For Jackie, this is a very difficult step. She never thought she would face something like this. But this is the reality. Jackie herself chose the burial site. After that, she told Bobby that she intends to speak to the press. However, Bobby advised her not to do so. In the present, Jackie told the journalist that she has no personal property and nothing at all. Former First Lady finds herself in a very difficult situation now. Bobby was very worried about the upcoming procession. It was a big risk for Jackie, because she would have to walk through the streets for a long time. There would be crowds everywhere and lots of dark windows and rooftops. If the shooter, whoever he was, wanted to get rid of the former First Lady as well, this would be the perfect opportunity. However, Jackie stuck to his opinion. They must give Jack a proper send-off. At night, Jackie couldn't sleep again. To keep from going insane, she put on a record, tried on jewelry and wore one of her best dresses. Jackie drank a lot, pacing around the presidential residence. She changed many dresses and pieces of jewelry. Soon this luxurious life will come to an end. However, Jackie would give it all up to have her husband back. In the present, Jackie tells the journalist that Jack wasn't a perfect husband, but he aimed to be an ideal leader for the country. He loved his family deeply. The day before, Jackie sought solace from a priest. She doesn't understand why all of this has happened to her and how God can be so cruel. All Jackie ever wanted was simple family happiness. Her husband often didn't spend the night at home, but that didn't make him a bad person. Jackie would have liked to have what Jack promised her on their wedding day, but he couldn't give her that. However, they were a family despite everything. Any woman in Jackie's position would have been willing to endure much worse things for the opportunity to become the First Lady. However, Jackie always had pride. But what is left for her now that it's all over? The priest advised her to find solace in memories. With time the pain will diminish. Later, Jackie asked Nancy Tuckerman, the White House social secretary, to provide her with a list of foreign guests who will be attending the funeral. Nancy is also a close friend of Jackie's and supports her during this difficult time. Jackie used to think that Nancy was envious of her after Jack won the election, but now Jackie realizes it was ridiculous. No one else will ever definitely be jealous of her again. Everyone is preparing for the upcoming funeral. The attention of the whole world is focused on it. For the sake of the children, Jackie tries to be strong. The son is still too young and doesn't understand what's happening. Now Jackie hardly remembers what happened after the incident. But she remembers that Clint Hill, a Secret Service agent and the president's personal bodyguard, shielded her from the shooter. Jackie sincerely thanked him. The atmosphere is very tense. President Johnson doesn't like the tone in which Bobby talks to him, but the wife asked Lyndon to calm down. Clint Hill would be willing to help Mrs. Kennedy understand who is behind all this. However, Hill of course did not see the shooter. Nancy believes it's a bad idea to have Caroline and John, the Kennedy children, at the funeral, as these images will be in all the reports. But Jackie insists that the son and daughter should say goodbye to their father. The whole world must see two children left without a father. Jackie descended with her son and daughter. Crowds of people gathered on the streets. Everyone came out to bid farewell to John Kennedy. For Lyndon Johnson, this was a difficult trial at the beginning of his presidency. A farewell ceremony took place. After learning some details, Jackie changed her mind and orders that the funeral procession be private. She doesn't want to expose her son and daughter to such a risk. Later, Jackie walked with the priest, asking where she had sinned. The priest said that God sends trials to people not because of their sins but because they are chosen. A new carpet was laid in the White House. It was supposed to be a surprise for the president and his wife, but now it's too late. Jackie made the decision to completely cancel the procession, believing it wrong to put people at risk for vanity. One of the secretaries disagreed with this decision, believing that people need history. Today is John Kennedy Jr.'s birthday. Despite the mourning, Jackie arranged a small celebration for her son. Bobby wonders how the public will remember his brother. Did he do enough to leave a mark in history? Perhaps he will be remembered as the president who resolved the Cuban Missile Crisis and initiated the space program. Jack could have done much more, now it's too late. Because of Vietnam, the next President Johnson is going to have a tough time. There are many unresolved foreign policy issues. In the presidential residence, Jackie Kennedy's belongings are being packed as she is no longer the First Lady. Now she is an ordinary woman who must take care of her children. Jackie changed her mind again and wants to organize a lavish procession. However, Mr. Valenti had to refuse her. There will be 103 heads of state at the funeral, and they cannot be exposed to such a risk. However, Jackie intends to walk beside her husband's casket tomorrow, even if everyone else refuses. She considers it her duty. In the present, she asked the journalist to write this down. Jackie wanted her husband to be remembered by people as a great president. The journalist reminded Mrs. Kennedy that she was at the center of events, so she will also go down in history. The funeral procession began. As planned, Jackie followed the casket. Thousands of people took to the streets, sharing the widow's grief. Jackie knows that her husband would not have liked such a lavish procession in his honor, but she did it primarily for herself and for the people. Everyone should have had the opportunity to bid farewell to the president. Before the casket was delivered to the Capitol, Jackie wrote a farewell letter to the husband in which she said that life no longer had meaning for her. Therefore, as she walked the streets, she only hoped to be next after her husband. Jackie confessed to the priest that she was lying to everyone about not remembering anything from the events of that fateful day. In reality, she remembers everything in the smallest detail. At that moment, Jackie was waving to the gathered people when suddenly a shot rang out. Jackie tried to help her husband but was powerless to do anything. He passed away right in her arms. Since then, Jackie began praying to the Lord to take her to the husband. But God did not hear her prayers. John Kennedy was solemnly buried. By that time, Jackie had no strength left to cry. In the present, Jackie asked the journalist to show her a draft of his article. The journalist told Mrs. Kennedy that the country would remember her as a dignified First Lady. Despite the grief, she held herself like a true queen. In the past, in public, Jack and Jackie always gave the impression of a model couple. Nancy saw Jackie off, who was leaving the White House with her children. In the present, Jackie told the journalist that Jack was never naive, but he believed in ideals and strived to follow it. She also expressed gratitude to the Johnsons, who had been truly kind to her. In the future, Jackie wants to be buried next to her husband. The priest advised her to continue believing in God. Often people spend their entire lives searching for answers to their purpose, but the truth is that there are no answers. Jackie understands that the priest is right. Sooner or later, her grief will subside. Now she must move on with her life for the sake of the children. Driving through the city at night, Jackie saw how people had returned to their normal lives, as if there had been no tragedy at all. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.